This is season number 19 of Bass Talk Live with Matt Pengrack. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Aftco, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, and Pro Guide Batteries. Hit them with the hook, Jeffries.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. We might get into some technique show today. It's been a minute since we've kind of my command of the English language over the past week has really been struggling. I probably need to kick that. It's been a minute since we've taken a deep dive into a technique. I think probably last week where Casey Ashley, and we weren't even planning on doing that with Casey Ashley, and all of a sudden we're 20 minutes into Casey Ashley on his 1/8 and 3/16 ounce green pumpkin Zoom trick worm shaky head on his custom head, and how he throws it and where he throws it. If you haven't had a chance to go back and listen to that, I had traded in the shaky head for the mid-sized Ned and the drop shot, of course. And then after having Casey on, I have gone back and added the shaky head back into my arsenal for the 2023 season. That's how convincing Casey Ashley was. And, you know, once you win a Elite Series event and an FLW Tour event and a Bassmaster Classic, people listen to what you say. So shaky head back in the box. And I might be the same today with a ball head and a swim bait, because for some reason I have never gotten that utmost confidence in like the Pro Swimmer or a Kai Tech or any of those kind of ribbed or smaller swim baits. Now I've caught them on it, but it's not my go-to. And fishing extremely slow and staying in one area for a long time is not my go-to. So today's guest, long time, when I was getting ready for the show, I said, holy cow, I did not realize. I figured that Jason Reyes had been on tour for maybe 12 years. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16 years. 16 years as an FLW Tour and Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit Pro. And then crazy stats on Jason Reyes too. Top 10, 8 out of the last 10 years. Good stuff. So we will have Jason Reyes on in just a minute. Hey, there's only 3 more days for me to talk about this. The St. Jude Break Your PB fundraiser, New Prague, Minnesota. I am flying in on Saturday, and then I'm flying back early Sunday morning so I can make the Super Bowl and watch that. But New Prague, Minnesota, if you're anywhere in that southern Minnesota area, all proceeds go to St. Jude for the Dick Hiley St. Jude Bass Classic that I'm fishing with Adam Bartuzek. All the Crappie Chronicle guys will be there. I'll be there. The Break Your PB beer, they'll have a couple kegs of that there, and thousands of dollars in prizes in raffles. You buy raffle tickets. That's how we're raising money, not only on the ice fishing side, but also from Aftco, Pro Guide, Sunline, Denali, and Big Bite. So I've had several of the guys DM me about attending that 5 to 10 p.m. Saturday, February 11th. Come say hi. A shipment of hats and decals for BTL will be arriving today that I will be giving out at that event. So if you have any questions on that, New Prague, Minnesota, the Giesenbrau Beer Company, Giesenbrau, and then they spell beer BIER, and then company CO. It's pretty much the most Minnesota spelling I've ever seen in my life. All right, let's get to today's guest from Texas. Where you're in Texas right now, right, Jason?
Yeah, I'm at home and near Houston. That's where I live.
All right. So do you fish Conroe a lot?
I actually went over and fished a couple team tournaments over there already this year, and it's starting to get a little bit of grass back. I go dabble over there when it gets some grass, and I like to fish shallow over there pretty much. I don't know, like all those locals, they have tons of brush piles and they catch big sacks doing that. But we had a pretty good tournament over there. We had 24 and change, I guess, finished second. So good way to start the year.
So I fished the Bass Nation Championship there in 2016.
Okay.
Went down, spent a ton of time. That to me is I've never seen a lake with more of a local advantage than Conroe. Like, it's absolutely insane how many of the little nuances, how much of the stuff looks the same, and how there's like little one-off things that the locals know about, do, and have planted. Is that a fair assessment on that lake?
Very fair. I mean, there's, the lake's full of docks and it's mostly all bulkheaded, from the upper end down. There's some river fishing up north, but there are, those guys have planted just about anything you can think of out there, trying to, put something on a side of a point or a, road bed or what have you. So it's got tons of brush in it. A lot of guys know which piles they live in, and they have these milk runs that they get on, and guys like Russell Cecil, guys that have done good, across East Texas. I mean, I'm not even going to go over there and try to compete on a deep bite against that guy. He's got 150 places he can run. So yeah, it's definitely turned into some of that. And now with live scope, I mean, they can dial that in pretty good over there.
It's amazing to me that there's any fish left in that joint. I'm not going to lie.
It really is, but I'll be honest with you, it's full of big ones. Like, it's full of them. Like,
all see it on Facebook, and it's like 4 for 29, 3 for 19, and you're like, what the heck?
It's crazy. I mean, there's a little bit of grass growing, and the water's kind of up now, so they're gonna have a spawn that's crazy. There's gonna be some sight fishing, I'm sure, going. You're gonna see that lake kick out some big stringers. There's no doubt.
What is the name of that restaurant there that kind of has like the decking that's kind of right by the ramp?
I think it's like Papa's on the Lake or something like that.
Yeah, that's one of the cool kind of open bar walk-in venues around the country that you go to, where you walk in and you're like, this place is kind of cool.
Yeah, especially if you work out and wear a tank top. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, when the fishing tournament's in town, there's like a couple places, like you walk into the Stump and like everybody, I'm not comparing that to the Stump, people. Do not send the hate mail messages. There is one Stump and that's it. But I'm just saying, like, where when there's a tournament, everyone goes, hey, you want to go here? You walk in and it's just a bunch of out of shape dudes drinking beer and eating pizza.
That's right. Right. Usually in their rain pants and a sweatshirt.
Yeah. Hey, you want to split a pitcher?
Yeah, exactly.
No. Do you do any of those? I've heard of all those. There's some jackpots down in Texas that do like $500 entry fees or kind of higher entry fees. Like, I mean, Oklahoma here, we're talking like $40, $50, $60 entry fees. But aren't there like some high-end jackpots down there that you can get into?
I think they play for a little bit more money in Conroe than I play over here at Lake Houston. But even then, it's $100, where like I talked to Crete and he'll be like, man, I'm fishing the Tuesday nighter. I go, oh yeah, what does it pay? And he's like, oh, not a lot. They don't want to play for more than like $20 or $40. So, we're fortunate. They do have some tournaments over there where they get, 30, 50 boats and, can win, $3,000 or $4,000.
This has never made sense to me. And I think I heard of one and not, but why would you not have a $500 Wednesday nighter or Tuesday nighter? $250, $250 per person. And if you win, you win 10 grand.
Yeah. Hey, I think you should. I mean, if you think about, these same guys that are fishing locally, I mean, they have the same rigs and the same, stuff that the guys on the tours have for the most part. I mean, they're invested as well in boats and tackle and, electronics. So yeah, why not? If you're going to run, 14, 18 miles on a Tuesday nighter, why not go ahead and play for $500? I agree. I would love it.
Pete's saying that there's a Thursday nighter on Louisville, $100, 40 to 60 boats.
Yeah, I believe it. Which
I'm just shocked that means there's 40 to 60 teams that feel like you can catch a bass on Louisville and are willing to risk $100.
That's a whole nother, I mean, you might as well make that a big bass event, at that point.
Yeah. I mean, you get a bite and
most
win.
All the tournaments are won like right outside the takeoff, for that matter.
Yeah. They've got a restaurant there too.
Yeah, I think I might have seen that one. It's been a long time since I've been over there.
Sneaky Pete's?
Fortunately.
I think it might be Sneaky Pete's. I'm not sure. Anyway, James Biggs always gives me a hard time when I talk bad about Louisville on the show, but I rank like you obviously have your list. Like, what are your top 3 favorite lakes in the country?
In the country, okay.
Yeah,
so
like just your top 3 favorite lakes. You probably could rattle those off.
Oh yeah, real easy. So the thing is none of them are in Texas. Okay, so probably Smith Lake, number 1. I mean, I've had good tournaments there. I've had a couple bad tournaments, but at the end of the day, I mean, for some reason that one, like, there's probably the only lake that I would ever consider like, quote, living on. Another one that I really like is Lake Murray, South Carolina.
Oh yeah.
That's a good one. And then probably, after this past season, I really like the St. Lawrence River. Like I'm not really done that great there, but it's intriguing to me. Like the current, the just the massive body of water and long runs, and do you really have to run that far and all that stuff. I'm excited to go back there one day. I think it would. I'm starting to kind of learn a little bit more about that. So I like the challenge of that.
Plus, it's crazy where you're actually like, I am in my bass boat with the potential to catch a 7-pound smallmouth, and I just drove past a castle.
That's right. And then there's a 5-mile-an-hour current with a ship going beside me. Yeah. The other way. The
hardest part for me on the St. Lawrence is being like, this is a tournament.
This is right. It's almost like a tournament vacation, really. Like if you think about it, because especially for down here where I live, the water's like clear, and there's you're catching these 4 and 5 pound smallmouth at times, and there's these giant cruisers and ships, and there's hardly any bass boats on the water. It's just really cool place.
All right, then. Do you have a list of your least favorite lakes? Like places that you go, I have zero desire to do this, but it's on the schedule. And this is not an indictment to the, listen, I will say this because I've got a couple, this is not an indictment to the town, the people around the town, the hospitality. This is just a lake that does not suit you at all.
So one in particular that I think about, up until you told me to, pull out the gold chain, it would have been Harris chain, but I made a top 10 there last year, so, hey, thanks for the tip. But it's probably Eufaula, Alabama. I don't know why, but that one just, I don't know, man. If I see that on the schedule, I'm like, oh, Eufaula. It's just not one that I get all that excited about.
That's not good. I got to go there in 3 weeks.
No, good luck with that. Yeah, that's
thank you for that.
That place, man. It's tough on me, but I'll give you another one. Probably Lake Travis. I mean, you wouldn't think that, but when I see it on the schedule, I'm like, really? Like Travis? Like at all the lakes in Texas, you pick Lake Travis. There's been a couple big tour events there in FLW, and even I think Bass Pro went there. So that's one that I'm always scratching my head at.
I think the Elite Series went there. That's
maybe it was the
lake that's got stripers in it.
Yeah, and I think like we went there in FLW a couple times. But yeah, that's one. I'm really, I'm also the guy that's like, hey, throw me a schedule. I'm not ever gonna, be the guy that's like, I'm not fishing because of that schedule. So, another one that would probably be like, it used to be Champlain. I used to hate the 32-hour drive. But I've kind of figured out a way around that now. So I kind of have one of my guys.
Do you do this ship and fly?
No, man. So I got a guy. I got a guy that works for me, drives, makes deliveries, and whenever Champlain's on the schedule, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna have you drive my boat and truck to New York, and I'm gonna fly in, and then I'm gonna get your ticket, and you come on back. And that's So when Champlain's on the schedule now, I'm like, I got that figured out.
I like
it. It's really not even that big of an expense if you really think about it, because you drive from my house, it's like 32 hours. Holy cow, 2 days of that. I mean, by the time you get there, you need a day just to chill. So I can fly there in 3 hours, and I'm also running a business and things. It just works, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Have you ever just messed around up there for like a week around tournaments? Because if you basically start at like Cleveland or whatnot and just work your way up, there's like 2 or 3 little Lake Erie deals, that Oneida, all those lakes. It's a great place just to mess around in.
Oh, I have not done that. I would really like to do that. I mean, that sounds like a great time where you take like say maybe like 10 days and you just start traveling east and you just stop. And if it's not that great, then you can move on to Buffalo and then you move. Yeah, exactly. I would love that. That'd be great. But that's a good idea.
All right. Before we get too far in, I do want to mention. So I made the MLF Fantasy Fishing Group League yesterday. So this is
okay.
This is a public service announcement because there are like 28 people that are going to get. I think you can sign up later, but there's 28 people that probably need to go back in and join the actual Bass Talk Live. So when you sign up, I'm going to get a call from Joe Pogger, and he's going to be like, no, that was wrong. So I'm going to try to get this right. When you sign up for Major League Fishing, you make your create your account or whatnot, and then you have to go up, and it says. And there's a little like menu bar. It says free to play fantasy fishing games. You have the Abu Garcia Predictor game, the Bass Pro Tour, and the Tackle Warehouse Invitationals. So obviously you want to click on the Invitationals because it's separate. Just because you pick they're run completely separately. So then you have to join a league. Well, Bass Talk Live has 371 members. I'm taking a screenshot of it. It's the only time we'll have more than Tackle Warehouse because they have 325 members. But I had to make it public. So yesterday's league, if you signed up yesterday for the Tackle Warehouse invitationals on Fantasy Fish, you have to go back in and re-sign up with Bass Talk Live because I didn't realize that I already had one made that was private. All I had to do was click it public and it was still good to go. So if you were in one that didn't have over 370 members in it, go back in, sign back up. I signed up today. And then also you have to go in separately to the Bass Pro Tour, and then you can join the Bass Talk Live group on the Bass Pro Tour. I did not have a Bass Talk Live group last year because I didn't realize they were separate. I do realize this year also on the Elite Series side, the BTL group is up and running. So there's the Fantasy Fishing Public Service announcement.
Gotcha.
Jason, do you realize what?
Sounds confusing.
No, it is. But do you realize how ridiculous fantasy fishing sounds to someone who is not in the world of bass fishing?
I would imagine they were probably trying to figure out how that worked. Yeah.
Like it's comical. Like, what do you do? Wait, what? Fantasy fishing? Oh yeah, dude. You go in and you pick these dudes and you can like win prizes and you just get like you're an alien look.
Well, I've had plenty of fantasies while fishing, but they usually don't turn out.
All right. Something that I found interesting and that I said is you like to fish slow and you also like to fish like a light line swim bait. Is that a fair assessment? Yeah. Am I overselling the swim bait?
No, I really do. I mean, I like that, and it definitely has its place. And I happened to catch your show with Casey, and he talked a little bit about some of those things, and there's some of the stuff that he talked about that I like totally agree with. Like, and you were like, oh well, why not this or why not that? And he was telling you just basically no, like I do it this way, and I don't really care about how anyone else does it. So we'll get into. I'll go over like the swim bait stuff real quick, and then we'll get into maybe like a shaky head and how it kind of relates. So probably. It started for me back when we were fishing the Beaver Lake tournaments and the FLW tour. And when the Kitech first came out, fish kind of never seen that. You were able to fish it over deep water through timber, stuff like that. So I was throwing it, and I had my best success by downsizing my line. And a lot of guys would throw it on a spinning rod because they could throw it further with a lighter, weight and fish it over deeper water. Well, I just could never get the rotation of the reel. Always felt like I was winding it too fast because the key is to wind it slow. And I was throwing it on like an 1/8 ounce head, just a regular ball head style 3/0 hook on whether it's a 2.8, 3.3, 3.8, and I switched to like a bait caster, but on a rod that had like a lot of give. And by doing that, I put a like 6-pound test line on it, and a lot of guys are like, "Golly, man, you're throwing a 6-pound on a bait caster." And actually, if you have the right rod, though, and the right setup, it's, you know, assuming you're not going to get wrapped around docks or, you know, some kind of structure, it's very manageable. You know, you back down your drag. You know, you don't want to, you know, tighten it too tight. But I mean, I've caught a ton of fish that way, and you know, lakes like Beaver, Martin, Smith, Hartwell, a lot of the spotted bass lakes and things like that is where it's really shined in tournament.
I'm looking at this, and you have top 10s on Amistad, on Smith, on Cherokee, on Beaver. I mean, these are historically clear, very clear water, finicky lakes around the country. Correct.
And, you know, the swim bait was a part of that. You know, definitely at Smith, definitely, you know, I don't think I made a top 10 at Lanier, but I finished fairly high. I was kind of hanging around there. But all that plays. I mean, it even played at Cherokee some, and then I switched to an Ed. But that was, you know, that was part of some of the top 10s that I've made have been with a little Kitech swim bait. I mean, picking out small areas, fishing really slow, covering different depths of the water column, trying to figure out, you know, will a fish come up for it? Will I have to slow it down, speed it up, things like that. But it's definitely something that a guy can spend a lot of time with and dial it in a little more than just making a cast and winding it in. At first, I mean, kind of like you said, man, I haven't really dabbled with that too much. Well, at first I was kind of like, you expect anytime you tie on something new that you're going to have instant success. 5 casts, 10 casts, 15 casts, and you're already starting to question it, you know? And I just had to push through that with that technique. And then after you start getting a couple bites, you're like, man, that's a fish I would have never caught on any other bait probably. So you feel like you're tapping into a new technique and a new style of fishing. So that's kind of what was intriguing to it for me.
All right, are you cool with like actually breaking it down? Because I have found I like to fancy myself a finesse angler, but I have found the lighter line and the more finesse you go, the more attention to detail matters and the more your setup matters. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, are you cool with actually diving in with that and explaining how that system works?
Sure.
Okay. BTL on a Tuesday. Jason Reyes. We will be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top one on Strike King.
Hey guys, Gerald Swindle representing the AFCO Hydronaut. This is the jacket I love wearing when times is tough, and I'm talking about the weather, not the fishing. The jacket, what I like, I got a double cup right here. I can seal up the bottom of my jacket because when you're fishing, you're holding your arms up. You're bad about getting water that runs downhill. Everything bends good. I'm long arm. Look, it fits very comfortable. My arms is flexible. I've got the speed hood on, pouring down rain. I can get everything zipped up. One thing they did is they made plenty of pocket space. If you ain't got enough pockets in the Hydronaut rain suit, you just got too much stuff from the water membrane membrane. That's 30K, baby. 30 times the reason you ain't gonna get wet. Super warm. If it's cold in the wintertime, you put on your hydronaut, you're gonna be a much more comfortable person. If you want to just look sexy at Dairy Queen, wear your hydronaut. We got it from small to 5X. Most rain gear does not come in that many sizes. You got waist adjusting straps. We can make it fit you. No matter what the environment is, we want you to be comfortable. We want you to be dry. You gotta check it out. It ain't gonna let you down.
Elite Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
All right, welcome back. We are talking with Toyota Series and NPFL angler Jason Reyes, which is this little sampling as to what we're going to get into in the second half of the show. But before we went to break, we were talking about they're calling it now the bait finesse system or something, like with all these like light reels and rods that are designed to be bait casters for light line. Like, are you using like these specifically designed bait casting equipment for light line, or are you taking traditional bait casting equipment, downsizing it?
I've taken just traditional stuff. Like, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that. So real quick, I'll just explain to you. So where I see guys, I can't necessarily say make a mistake, but you gotta have something to throw this stuff on that you really like. Okay, like you don't go just pick up a cheapie or a cheapie spinning rod or a cheapie reel, $50. I mean, there's a difference. Okay, so get you something that's good, something that's you kind of get what you pay for sometimes in fishing equipment. But I'm using just a Shimano basic Metanium reel on a Loomis 852. Medium action rod.
So it's it's $1,000 setup.
Yeah, it is. I'm not even saying that you can't find something comparable for less money. That I'm not saying that that's the end all there. You can. I mean, you can throw it on put it this way, you can throw it on a Corrado with a half expensive rod. You can do it. But are you going to go to Academy and get spend $100,000 on a bass boat to try to find a $50 rod? I mean, I see that happen all the time.
No, I mean, it's not going to work with a Black Max is what you're saying.
Yeah, probably not. So
not that there's anything wrong with that, but you're trying to throw real light baits where drag is incredibly important, where spool revolutions, where your tolerances are incredibly minimal for this to work effectively, because it's not like an ounce thing that you're just lugging out there.
Right. Now, like, you're not going to be able to accomplish that with a reel that's not capable of holding 6 or 8 pound line, casting at long distance with light, like an 1/8 ounce or 3/16 ounce head. You're going to spend time picking,
Yeah. Picking and seeing one up close.
Yeah. And then it's going to end up in the rod box, and then you're done with that tactic. So, yeah, I mean, but once you fish with it on the right equipment, it starts to feel good and gain that confidence. The same way on a spinning rod. I mean, a guy that the average guy, what's he got? 1, maybe 2, and if you're only going to have 1 or 2, even more the reason to have something good, in my opinion.
Okay, what rod are you using for this when you're throwing the ball head and it is a Kitech? It is either the Swing Impact 3.3 or 3.8 primarily is what you're using on a ball head, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I dabble with it started with the 2.8, and then I feel like the 2.8 was, some of those top 10s on Smith Lake, that was all 2.8, but 3.3, I kind of, since that came out, that was like the later version to come out. I really like that one. It's kind of the in between, perfect size for spotted bass lakes and even smallmouth, things like that. So I really like the 3.3.
Okay, and then the ball head that you're putting on that 3.3.
I mean, there's a couple different ones I use. I have a homemade one that I make that's got like a 3/0 light wire gummy hook on it, and it's double collar. But Kitech actually makes a head that is really, really good. One of them has like a little weed guard on it, and that works good around any kind of docks or timber, cables, things like that. But just the one that's without the weed guard, I use a lot, over deeper water.
And it's a tungsten head.
Yeah, it's a tungsten head, so it's the profile on it's great. The head is kind of like a grayish color, so it matches any kind of shad. Most all of those swim baits are some form of shad color. I got a couple colors I like bluegill flash a lot, pro blue. You don't need to buy, 14 different colors. Get you 2 or 3 and play with that a little bit, and I think that's plenty. Just have enough of them.
Yeah, that so Kitech has figured out the same thing that Yamamoto did, which is if you make a plastic that works well, you can mess with it till it gets soft enough. So if one looks at it wrong, it rips, and you have no issue. $10 to get 5 more. It's the most brilliant thing ever.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Cinco started that, and then, Kitech's kind of came behind that as well. And you're right. I mean, you catch one on it and you're like, well, that one's done. You toss it on the floor of the boat and you go to rig up another one. But yeah, at the end of the day, though, when, you're out there fishing on the tour and, 2 packs of baits a day, if you're catching them, it's not digging into your pocket too bad. That's why you were saying, hey, why not play for 500 on a Tuesday nighter, right? I mean, $8, $9, $10 a pack for 5 swim baits. I've never been a guy that super glued them. I know a lot of guys do that, and I get it, but there's just always been something about me putting super glue.
That's the same with me. I feel like there has to be some sort of smell. Like if I can sit there and smell it, there has to be something that they can smell. Now I know that it might not affect them, but to me, I'm like, I can smell that. Like what if that fish comes up and is like, that's something sketchy. And he follows it and turns away.
Totally with you on that. And another thing is like, can you even use super glue without getting it on you? I mean, is it even possible? I always get it on. I mean, you're going to touch your bait. It's not only that, but if you even have any on you, what are the chances that anything even comes out when you go to squeeze you got to have one brand new out of the pack.
It's always like on its side in there, and then it's rock hard.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like a white, just crusty, and you're squeezing on it and you're like, well, I must be out. Well, I don't know if I've ever even used it. It probably dried up. So I'm not big on the super glue. I'll just, I use a little double collar head, and it seems to hold it fine. I mean, every now and then you'll get, 2, 3 fish out of it if they eat it a little deep and, they don't tear it. But it's kind of the cost of doing it. Yeah.
All right. We kind of passed over this, but this is important because there's a ton of different colors. You said you keep it simple. What I have pulled up now is bluegill flash. If you're going to pick up 3 or 4, and there's the Kitech is what is the one that's probably started it all. I remember I was actually with Jeff Crete the first time I ever saw him, and we were at the tackle shop that had like no tackle in it, but it's right underneath the bridge on the left at Oneida going up the river in that grassy bay. And he pulled in there and he's like, oh man, I heard these things have these Kitech swim baits. He's like, these are, and you know how Jeff is, he's got the dipper. He's like, these are the deal. These are the deal.
Whatever he throws is the deal, right?
And he went in and just like bought like $1,000. And they literally, it was like minnows, leeches, some jig heads, some crawler harnesses, and like a rotating thing of Kitechs.
Well, I'll just say this, I'm really good friends with Crete, like pretty much talk to him every day. And he's cost me a lot of damn money, because I get that call. Hey, dude, you got to buy this. This
So
is the
convincing.
deal. I'm telling you,
So
man.
convincing.
I'm telling you. Oh, yeah. And if you don't, you almost feel shamed into buying it. You
Well,
know?
I told you.
Yeah.
I told you
Oh,
it was the
exactly.
deal. I mean,
Yeah. And
that's
you
what
get
you get.
somewhere, and he's like, "Will you have any of this?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, you're an idiot," And I'm like, "Yeah, you're probably right." But he's taught me a ton, and a lot of these things that we're talking about. I mean, he's the. I'm telling you, have you fished with him?
Oh,
Have
yeah.
you ever fished with him?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. I've been offshore one time, and I've fished probably 15 days with them. Like we've done a Murray tournament and on that little lake by his house. And
Yeah. So here's my take on Crete, right? Like he can find fish and dial in fish faster than anybody I've ever been in the boat with. Like he's that good. But sometimes what happens is 2-3 days of practice, day off later. I mean, he gets to thinking, right? Like you put him on the lake for 4 hours,
so
he's the best.
let me say this. You just said live on air that Crete's biggest problem is that sometimes he thinks.
No, man, I'm telling you, like he knows stuff that I'm like, wow, like he's like, oh man, it's gonna be a jig thing. I can already tell. And I'm like, and then it turns out to be. And I'm like, dude knew that like 4 hours into the practice. But by the tournament, sometimes he's already off the jig thing and now he's on something else and then on something else. So, I always tell him, man, why don't you just practice for like one day? That way you don't get caught up in anything else.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's amazing. Like most everything that I've learned about all this light line. I'll tell you one quick story. We were fishing at speaking of it, it was Lake Travis in a TTT tournament long time ago. I don't know, 05, 6, 7, somewhere in that range. And Jeff Reynolds and Crete were in the tournament and we were in practice. It was hot. It was in the summertime. Actually, Crete won the event. Okay, I'll just go ahead and tell you that. Well, they were over there, and there's this one giant boat dock, and they were skipping shaky heads underneath it. And I basically just bought a spinning rod, so I'm like, I just stood on the outside of the dock on the front deck of my boat, just staring at what they were doing, and just totally embarrassed to even make an attempt at the kind of cast they were making. And then I remember being in a marina and I ended up throwing a fluke and catching the fish I did, casting a bait caster with a fluke. There's no telling what I could have caught had I had any game. I mean, they had like good game, but anyway, I mean, I knew real quick that I had to start learning how to do that. If I was going to fish across the country.
Especially, I mean, you fished the FLW tour in the heyday of what was called the Shaky Head Tour. I mean, if you looked at the events you went to, 4 or 5 out of the 6 was like, hey, here's where it's going to be won, and this is the Shaky Head. It's going to be,
right.
Or not maybe 1, but top 10 at least.
Yeah. I mean, I came close to winning a beaver. I think I finished second with a Shaky Head over there. So, but the first time I think I went to beaver, I didn't even know, I had no game. So I had to learn pretty quick. It was something that I spent some time working on, and when you know that you're behind the 8 ball there. So you either make a change or you just go flipping, right? And that sometimes doesn't work. So I had to buy some more rods.
Yeah, I mean, half of the schedule was a finesse shaky head in a port. Like, listen to this year, like right around like 2010, Table Rock, Lake Norman, Fort Loudon Telco, Washita, and Gunnersville. Like that was your schedule.
Yeah, that was back when I realized I have to do something, because brush hogs and 1.5 crankbaits aren't going to cut it,
Here's 2009, Table Rock, Lake Norman, Beaver, Champlain. 2008, Lewis Smith, Norman, beaver, teleco at the Detroit River. Like
Yeah.
you guys weren't kidding, man.
No, man.
I mean,
If you didn't own, that's why I say if you didn't own a spinning rod, like how are you supposed to compete out there with that schedule? I mean, knowing what I know now, back then I well, I'll just go do this. But I learned real fast. You better be able to swing and you'd be amazed at some of the guys that you wouldn't think would be like the worm shakers. Like I'll tell you some of them, like Dudley. How about Morgan? That guy can shake a worm with the best of them.
Wait a second. Andy Morgan?
Guaranteed.
No.
Guaranteed.
No.
I promise you.
With the spinning rod?
Oh,
he just doesn't talk about it because he likes the Wyatt Earp persona.
I'll tell you another one, Mark Rose. He can shake a worm.
I know that.
Trust me. Yeah, he can do it.
No,
so
Andy Morgan? You think he's got more than 2 spinning rods in his boat?
He might not, but he's damn good with those 2.
Really? Okay,
I'm just telling you. He'll shake a worm. Oh, yeah. If he has to, he will.
Okay, we did our top 5 with Casey. We did a top 5 with Casey Ashley. I can't remember exactly who was on it. Let's do shaking a worm, your top 5 right now. We could do, I don't know, let's just go, recent, because those guys in the 80s, like, I mean, what do you do with Harold Allen with a 6-inch V&M port pin on a piece of lead and a tree turn?
Yeah, I don't even know, like, if you can, I mean, he's good. I would call him like the Texas rig worm master.
Okay, so let's make our top 5 because I'll be interested to see, because I feel like we left Larry Nixon out with
definitely he's got to be in there.
Okay, I think Casey and I left Larry Nixon out. He's
transformed, by the way. He used to be the Harold Allen style Texas rig, but now he's the Ned rig shaky head. He's got mega game for sure.
You'd have Creed still.
I have to have Creed on there. I mean, hell, he showed me how to do it. So I mean, he's good at it for sure. Probably Wiggins. I mean, I know Casey Ashley touched on that. I mean, you got to put him in there. I mean, he's a guy's like a super stud with that. I mean, I'm gonna go with
a Mark Rose.
No, I'd go Cody Meyer before Mark Rose.
Oh, that's a good one.
I mean, he might have been drop shot in some of those fish back in the Beaver Lake days, but he was catching his
tomatoes.
Yes, exactly. I mean, if we can't dial it into what size worm, but I mean, he was throwing, that kind of stuff.
And then would you put Casey in there?
Oh yeah, I mean that. Even see some of the guys that are really good at it might not have had to been good at it from the get go. Gerald Swindle's another one.
Oh yeah,
he'll shake the worm with the best of them. He's another one that you'd probably have to throw in there.
Did Casey say anything in his interview that you could go back and listen to it last week, or anything that you like disagreed with or that you do differently? Because if I just remember rundown, it's either an 1/8 or a 3/16. It's never a screw lock. It's the same exact thing. It's one worm, and that's pretty much it.
So the one thing that he mentioned, I agreed with pretty much all of it. But the one thing that he mentioned was the whole screw lock thing, right? Like, let's just say I drew you in a tournament, you're in the back of my boat, and you have 2 spinning rods with 2 spot remover, say, heads with worms on them. I'm just going to be like, man, I should have used you in practice. Like, you're going to shake off is more than you're going to catch.
With a screw lock.
Yeah, in my opinion.
Okay.
Not even trying to. You're going to try to catch them, but you're not going to.
Explain why a screw lock basically acts like a weed guard.
Because that's what it is. So, to me, Crete and I played with this stuff forever, and trial and error. I mean, I've used one before, and I'm not going to say that you're not going to catch a fish on it. I'm not going to say you're not going to catch, a big fish on it or whatever. It's just tried and true, attaching your worm to the hook. If that's the case, why wouldn't we do the same thing with a Texas rig? Just saying.
I mean, there are some that you can do like a screw lock in, but 98% of it is with the straight shank or the offset hook. It's because the bait collapses against it and keeps the bite bigger, right?
Correct. And not only that, like if you go back to when kind of the shaky head era was at its highest, there were not a lot of companies that were making hooks that size with light heads. I mean, you had to get like crappie jigs and things. I mean, that was out there, but not like bass tackle. So
the number one back in the day was probably the screwed up jig head from Reaction Innovations, and it had a spring on it.
Yep, it did. And then, but really, like some of those old Kalen stuff were were what I would have probably went to before I went to that. So
okay.
And then once tournaments started getting won on that, you started to see companies come out with their own versions, and the lighter wire hook is definitely the key. That's one thing Casey mentioned. He didn't touch on it a whole lot, but if you have a hook and this is for spotted bass, deep water, because I mean, think about it. If you're fishing in 30 foot of water and you're trying to hook a fish, you gotta kind of move it a little bit. And in my opinion, if you're fishing like a Smith Lake, I'm always going to do my best to just throw straight fluoro 6-pound line, not go to the whole braid fluoro leader.
Really?
I know deeper. If I'm not fishing that deep, it's okay. But man, there's just something to it, man. And he even touched on that a little bit, that he'll throw, straight fluorocarbon, and if you're throwing anything over 8, it's just too much. And I watched a couple of your shows, and you mentioned guys going to like 5 and things like that. I believe all that plays. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to throwing some 5. The brand of line I throw, I don't know that they make a 5. Maybe they do in a Tatsu. I'm not sure, but 6 seems to be good.
That's interesting, because a straight fluoro seems to be going by the wayside. But
it
had
does.
Andrew Upshaw on last year, and he throws the really light stuff on straight fluoro. You did. Casey touched on it. You're talking about it. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Why do you
I'm
think?
sure
Why
would
do you
tell
think
the
it
same
makes
thing.
a difference? But why? What is the reasoning behind it? Like, why do you get more bites in certain situations on straight fluoro than on the braid to fluoro combo?
So let's just go back to what you're trying to accomplish. So you're throwing a shaky head on a drop off from say 12 to 18. Just let's go with that.
Okay.
Really what you're trying to do is you're trying to scratch the rock, right? I call it scratching. Like that's why you'll hear guys, they say they hold their rod up high. So you hold it up high and you're just really trying to like crawl, scratch. When you have the braid, it doesn't have any stretch, so you tend to pop it without even trying to. Even in wind and things like that, and you get a bow, you're always trying to feel. To me, the natural fluorocarbon seems to be the best all around for the real old school shaky headers. To me, are all would probably all tend to agree.
Okay, let me see if I got this right. This is horrible, but so there's 12 to 18. The straight line is the fluorocarbon, where you're going with the natural fall of it, and the other one with it is when you're lifting it up, you're kind of not staying in bottom contact with it, and you're just kind of skipping 4 and 5 and
hopping,
foot. Okay.
It starts hopping real bad, especially if you get a little wind and you go to pick up. I mean, you pick up with the braid, and it wants to just like
float away. Okay. I got it. That's good stuff. Will you go heavier than a 3/16, or are you an 1/8 and 3/16 too?
I'm an 1/8 and 3/16. Heavy wind, maybe a 1/4. That would maybe make me go there. I have thrown a swim bait on a 1/4 at times just to get it down there. But mostly 1/8 and 3/16. I'm going to always go. I think Casey touched on it too. 1/8 over 3/16 if I can get away with it. Always.
Have you found with live scope and forward facing sonar that you've learned a lot more about how the fish react to bottom baits like Ned rigs and shaky heads over the past couple of years?
For sure. I mean, sometimes they'll want to go down for it and sometimes they won't. Like if you get it below them, things like that, I've definitely noticed that you have to play with that and how it, the fall, things like that. will, a lot of times you need the fish to move on the forward facing sonar to clue you in to how they're acting. Just you might see them, but what are you really seeing? You see a fish, but when you can see fish moving off the bottom, now you can start really dialing into what are they, how much are they moving? We always hear about the guys catching the suspended ones and the ones they trick into biting, but the ones that are kind of, Creed always say like, oh man, look at them, they're crawling, and they literally like swim up above the rock, and you'll see them, and then they'll go back down. So you kind of like, you want to get in that rock and just scratch it over the top. That's kind of how I've always thought it would work best, but sometimes not easy to do because we always want to fish so fast, like it's hard to do some of these things and quote cover a lot of water. It's really difficult.
Which is why just it suits your style. It comes in nature. When you're in an area that you have confidence in, you have no problem spending 2-3 hours without picking up the trolling motor and just making sure that you're covering everything as long as you feel like there's fish there.
Yeah, for sure. And, I feel like as well so that when you show up to a lake, like you're going to go to an open or whatever, and you're going to show up there 3-4 days prior to the tournament starting, and you say you find fish, right? Well, where did you find the fish in the window? Because there's a window, right? They're not going to stay doing the same thing for 6, 7, 8 days. There's going to be a variance of what they're doing, weather, things, all that changes. So did you find it in the, in the front side of the window, the middle, or the tail end? And to me, that's half the puzzle right there, is what did you find and where is it at in the window? You're on the front side of it, back side of it, or is it just the tail end? And when you can start figuring that out, it lets you make changes that need to be made instead of, hey man, I caught them here yesterday and they're not acting the same way today. So you see a lot of guys win tournaments on day 4 doing different things than they did on what days 1 and 2, even, days 3. And I struggle with that personally. Like I do pretty good sometimes 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Then on final day, it's like, man, my stuff's kind of dying off and I need to make a change, but yeah,
that's what I've always struggled with the opens. Cause I've gone into the final day a couple times and I'm like, I'm always like 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds out because that's just the way I fish. I'm more of a consistency to get there. And, you can't win it if you're not in it. That's my thing.
Right. That's right.
So it's also really hard to win it if you're 12 pounds back, but that's a different conversation. Yeah. But I have struggled with going, dude, I know that what I have probably it isn't. I mean, I know in my gut it's not as good as it once was. And you're always trying to fish where the fish are and what's going. But I mean, going out there that it's not mega sack potential. Right. And you're like, well, but then you also are like, but dude, I just beat a 220 other guys and I'm in the top 10 and I'm just a couple good bites away. So why would I scrap everything to go try to catch? So then I struggle in my head between, do you just go out randomly hunting and then you come in with 2 fish and you realize that it was tough on everybody and you're like, well, damn, I could have scratched out 13 pounds and won it? Or do you go catch your 13 and then you come in and everyone has 16 and 17 and you drop a couple spots and you're like, why don't I have a set to be able to go out and try to find new fish? It's a conundrum.
Absolutely. I mean, we've all been there. Like, and like if you've had some experience out there in tournaments, when it's quote dying, right? You feel it. You can sense it. It's just hard to, sacrifice everything you've done for 2-3 days to walk away from it because you're like, man, I'm not leaving. I'm staying there till the end. And how many tournaments are won off of one area for 4 days these days? Not very many. I think you said the Harris chain was the other day,
Dude, that was nuts.
That's crazy. I mean, what, 100 yards or 50 yards or some crazy?
No, it was 100 yards and he fished 30 yards a day. And crazy. He said if he touched the trolling motor
Yeah.
It was done. So obviously those were like high pressured bed fish that knew what the hell was up. And once they sensed it or heard it on their lateral line, they would just, I'm just assuming this. I have absolutely no idea, but they would just kind of ease off the bed and let the guys go through there and and then they just kind of ease back. And this guy would just drop his poles and just relax. And he said it was 10 minutes until after he got up there that it even settled down. And then I don't know if you've ever been over there, but I mean, there's a billion reeds and they're all kind of different. I mean, dude, he said he would hit individual ones with the weightless Senko.
I mean, don't get me wrong. That's just my game. Like I would love to find or fish a tournament that worked out that way. But I mean, that's kind of like a 1 in a, 1,000 chance of that happening. But the question is wasn't that a co-angler tournament too? Was that a Toyota? Okay.
Yeah, I forgot to ask
it's
about what you
interesting
do.
to see what the guys behind him caught. If you think about that, because we always talk, oh man, I drew this guy that's fishing like 50 yards back and forth all day. What did they catch? Like it'd be interesting to know. I didn't look at that.
I fished the opens in one of the years. The first time I did, and I had a buddy that fished with me. And he's the guy who kind of got me into tournament fishing. Like when I was 14, there was a guy, and after he quit the club, he was like, "Hey, you can jump in with me." So he taught me a lot. He's actually fishing him as a co-angler with me this year. Owns his own plumbing company. No desire to fish in the front, but he's really good. And he drew a guy on Table Rock that literally tied off to a dock for 4 hours and said, "Hey, there is a big school of spots that live under this dock, and they're not here now, but when they show up, it's game on." And sat there and did not catch them. He said legitimately for 4 hours before he's like, I guess they're not like tied off. Like you might as well have dropped them off on the dock.
Yeah. They could do it right there from the.
I mean, so that I guess constitutes fishing slow. Slow.
Yeah, I guess that does get labeled as slow fishing, but yeah. I don't know. I like I say, there's a time and a place when to stay, and there's a time to also leave, and guys that can figure that out, after having success over multiple days. Like I fished the Rayburn tournament last year, the one I think Michael Neal won. I literally like day one, I was fishing, within sight of the guy. I'm obviously doing something totally different. He's on fishing some sonar, forward facing sonar pattern. But my point being is he did that for a couple of days and had, was doing really well. And then he's gone and he's not even there. The half of the second day he's out finding other fish. I mean, there's multiple ways to do it, for sure. And some guys have figured it out. I think that's why we're going through a process of repeat winners right now. Guys are figuring out how to win these multiple day tournaments, like you say, by setting themselves up to get in the top 10 or what have you, and then coming up with a second game plan how to finish the job.
Did you by chance listen to Kevin Van Dam's interview on Mercer?
I did not.
You got to go back and listen to that one. Yeah, it was him setting himself up in tournaments. So there was that streak where he won like 4 Angler of the Years, like 8 through 11 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that on a lot of fisheries, once he went there, the spot was done. If anyone else saw him there, if the fans saw him there, and he also knew that if he went to one of his good spots early, it was done because he couldn't go back to it on that same day. So he would set himself up. He talked about one event on Kentucky Lake where he drove 45 minutes away from any other waypoint that he had. Like literally drove away from all of his stuff, waited until like 2:00, didn't have anything in the box, waited until all of his chase boats and spectator boats went, and then on the way back in, hit one waypoint for 30 minutes and came to the weigh-in with 28 pounds.
Jeez.
And he knew that if he had hit that in the morning, or if it had like that he was toasted, right? Like he was done because the locals and everything. So he would talked about how he had to literally know like what his rotation and game plan was for 4 days because he only got one shot at each spot. And if he did his rotation wrong or his spots wrong because of how many spectators he had following him, and the other competitor seeing him, that his tournament would be gone.
Right. That's it. See, that's kind of what I was touching on, but that's next level stuff that the majority of guys, even including myself, sometimes don't even get in a mindset of that, of basically predicting how it's going to go. I mean, it exists, but to find it and to be like, he had to obviously catch enough fish to even be there. And then now he's there, he's already thinking probably on day 2 how he's going to, put the cap on it.
Yeah. The other one is that always sticks out to me is a Jason Christie. 2013, I believe, was the year when he won on Grand. Remember, the lake was way up in the bushes on that in June.
Yes.
And the fish should have been out, but the water came up. And
right.
I remember interviewing Jason after that. And he said that spot was, his dad and brother, whatever, uncle, the Christie family's good. He said that he had skipped that spot in a dozen tournaments for 20,000 a boat, team tournaments, BFLs, because he didn't want to have anyone see him there, and he wanted to make sure that when he caught them there, it made it count. So he saved it for the $100,000 tournament. And he's got a quote out there that says, "Hey, I've had this spot for 15 years." He goes, if I'm going to blow it out, I might as well do it for $100,000.
$100,000, yeah. And then there it was. Like,
I couldn't do that. Like, if I'm fishing for a boat and I knew I could go jack 24 out of this stretch of willows, like, I don't have the self-control to be like, there'll be a bigger one down the road.
I totally relate to that. I would burn it on the Tuesday nighter probably, because
Tuesday nighter.
so and so was going to go in there anyway, or whatever, find it by accident. Yeah.
All right. We're going to take one more break of the show. When we come back, I mentioned it when we came back from the previous break, NPFL. Jason Reyes, one of the guys who's been around almost 2 decades on the FLW tour and the Tackle Warehouse Pro circuit, now the Invitationals, making a little bit of a switch, still staying with MLF, fishing some events over there, but one of the big name guys that's making the move to the NPFL this year. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. Also, I'm quite proud of it. New Shoreline Boat and RV commercial coming in hot to BTL. They got one down in Austin there, Jason Reyes. So if you ever come in hot to the dock, ding the corner up, get in a little cable rash. That's my big thing, is you get those stupid cables.
The one right on the back corner of the boat.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I know that one. Yeah. That's the one that you're like, oh, man, can I sell it like that or not?
Yeah. The cable thing. Austin, Kansas City, Tulsa, and then we're also going to have Brock Edmeyer, who is the GM of the Tulsa store, in studio here to talk about. So, like, my old ZX 190, Jason, I had some deep dings in it. We'll just say that. And I'm still fishing out of it, but it was on the hull area, and I'd never even thought about it. Well, I met Brock like a long time ago, 2015, whatever. And when he hopped in the boat, he was like, dude, that's not good. Because he had just started working at the fiberglass room. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, that's going to catch and that's going to delaminate your boat. And I'm like, what? I'm like, it's just a hole. And he's like, no, like, you don't want to run with it like that. He's like, you might be fine. He's like, but if it catches it, he's like, it's putting stress on it and it's just going to peel back eventually. And I'm like, really? And he had this like mixture that he did and he put on it, and he's like, you're good now. So he's going to come in and talk about like what you need to get fixed, when, how, little things that you can do.
Well, he's not lying. I had a rock at Table Rock one year, and I was, it was kind of like one of those, you in the middle of the creek or river or whatever it was, and it delaminated. So yeah, it happens. You don't think it's going to.
Did it delaminate that same day or a little bit later?
No. It takes a little time, but when it starts happening, it happens real fast.
Anyway, so keep that in mind. During this commercial, they're on for the 2023 season. Excited to have Todd and all those guys on. So it is BTL on a Tuesday with Jason Reyes. We're going to talk what you're fishing, where you're fishing, and why when we come back for the final segment of BTL right after this. Shoreline Boat and RV, dock rash, storm damage, collision repair, that deep scratch or gouge from trying to access that secret creek. Shoreline Boat and RV can get your prized possession back in mint condition and looking good on the water, fast. All repairs are done in-house, so they're able to get your boat or RV back to brand new, quickly. All Shoreline's work comes with a rock-solid warranty. Find out more at ShorelineBoatandRV.com. Kansas City, Austin, and Tulsa.
Having confidence in your tackle while on the water is one of the main things to success, in my opinion. In the last couple of years with Denali, I've had just that. From anything from spinning rods, casting rods, tungsten products, even now to casting and spinning reels, I have the confidence to go out there and get the job done and know that all my equipment is going to handle it and do it just the way I want it. The thing about Denali is you've got great quality products at a great price point, so make sure you check them out.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronics setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com.
I'm the kind of guy that never leaves the house without a pocket knife, and Gamakatsu's come out with the EDC series of knives. EDC stands for Everyday Carry, so whether you're on the water or off, you can always have it with you. The best thing about it to me is that assisted open feature. With this D2 blade, you've got it right here at your fingertips, so if you can't find your scissors, you need to cut a knot, you need to cut your braid, you've always got it. Make sure you check it out. Never leave home without your Gamakatsu EDC knife.
Preparation is key to success. And that preparation starts well before you ever hit the water. You're only as strong as your connection to the fish, and your line is that critical connection. Confidence in your line every minute of every day on the water is a necessity, and failure, it's not an option. Sunline makes the fluorocarbon, nylon, and braided lines to give you the strength to guarantee your confidence.
The great thing about the new Sensation soft plastics from Big Bite Baits, heavily scented, super soft, buoyant, comes in 7 great new shapes. I've got a couple of them of my signature series, the cliffhanger worm and the ramtail craw, great for a flipping jig, football jig, swim jig, all that. Several other great shapes. Really excited about it. We've worked over the last year, catches fish all over the country, and I think it's going to catch fish for people everywhere you try it.
The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
All right, welcome back. BTL on a Tuesday. I'm not going to lie, Jason, the Michael Neal with a pocket knife kind of scares me.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you never know, right? You might never know when you might need that. Someone comes and tries to, steal your hole. You just Pull out your pocket knife.
He told me one time, if I ever went to Chickamauga that he'd have his dad arrest me.
Gotcha.
He's like, I'd stay away from the Dayton boat dock if I were you. I'm like, what have I ever done? And he just keeps saying, you know what you've done. And I don't know what I've ever done.
Yeah. He's one of those quiet guys that's kind of intimidating probably to fish with. Like, I could see, if you casted like over his line, he could just pull out his pocket knife and just snip your line.
I would see him do that. And then I could see him go, I could see him go, that sucks for you, doesn't it? You gonna do anything about that? You gonna do anything about that?
What are you gonna do about that?
I didn't think so.
Yeah. He's he's probably one of those guys that you would probably have to poke him real hard to get him mad, but if you did,
dude, in all seriousness, no, legit good dude, incredibly smart, the most underrated, business savvy, top tier angler on tour by far, with what he runs, with what he does behind the scenes, with the brands he represents, and the amount of product he moves. Michael Neal is in the same category as Wheeler, as Polinick. He's the same age as those guys. He just doesn't get the quote publicity because he's not he's not flashy.
Yeah, but
when you have a name guy.
But when you get the name like the real deal, do you need to be flashy? When you have that name? No.
The check's cash. All right. 76 anglers, $100,000 for first place, 20 paid places, 1 in 3.2 gets a check. Second place, 15, 14, 12. Fifth place, 11,000. 6th through 10th, 10,000, and 7,000 all the way down to 20th. $5,200 entry fee.
That's correct.
We're talking about the National Professional Fishing League now in its 3rd iteration and its 3rd season, but this thing is a go, and you're on it this year.
Yeah. So I'll give you a little play-by-play of how I decided to do that. So obviously you mentioned I've fished FLW for quite a number of years, and I've even fished the Bassmaster Tour a couple before that. So all those years that I fished, what was kind of the driving force of why I do this was the whole points race, championship, and with that being gone, it was kind of like you lifted the way the game was always played for me, so I stopped and thought, well, man, what are we going to do? What am I going to do this year? And the NPFL, like you say, it was new. I feel like they were, getting into something that a lot of people would have said they would have never, made it through the first year, second year, whatever. Yep. So I decided early on that that's what I was going to do. And obviously they, made some last minute adjustments on the payout, and then it started getting more traction, and now here we are, 100,000 for 76 guys in the smallest field I've ever fished. So looking forward to that. I've always fished a field of 150 to 200 in the FLW tour. So 76 people on a body of water for 3 days sounds pretty good.
With 20 paid and $100,000 for first. Like, this is the reason that there's not a 50 angler waiting list on this was bad timing by the NPFL.
100%. And they're fully aware of that. And, they've made comments that they want to, continue to move forward and do this again. So I don't think we're going to see a field size like this in 24. So it's a good year to take advantage of a smaller field size.
This is what's impressive to me about the NPFL, Jason. Obviously, you come in with a $5,000 entry fee in year one, and you're going to have a lot of naysayers. You're going to have a lot of people saying, hey, you got MLF, you got Bass. There's not room for this third one. But they get through that first year, and I think it's a good product. But then they have the debacle about the championship and the payout. And is the league going to fold or not? They somehow weathered that storm, which was both a PR, a logistical, and an angler trust nightmare, because that's the biggest thing. This whole thing is based on angler trust. They're for-profit businesses. Bass, MLF, NPFL, these are for-profit businesses. You are putting your trust in that company.
Right.
And they let the anglers down after that first year. But so I thought, I mean, then you had even I was part of it. I was like, man, I was rooting for them. There's no way you come back from a canceled championship and this many ticked off anglers. But guess what? They came back from it.
That's right. So
they still had a big field.
A lot of businesses, mine included. I mean, you start it and you have this idea of how it's going to go, and then you hit you hit a bump in the road, and you can either fold up or you can persevere, and they've chosen to do that. And I think it speaks volumes that they were able to, put this out there this year, continue on. And we let's be honest, we're in a time where everything's kind of leveled out in fishing. Mm-hmm. So, a new brand, a new show in town. I kind of like the idea. They're throwing a guy like me an opportunity to fish under the same structure that I've always fished, mm-hmm. rather than to have to fish the opens or the Tackle Warehouse Invitationals. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm can't wait for it to get started.
Here, I'm going to throw this up there because this is insane. So it is a 76 angler field, 6 qualifying tournaments. I love that they spread it out. Like you said, you're a business owner. You got a bunch of stuff going on. It's not like, hey, guys, I'll see you in 3 months. And then they act like fishing doesn't happen after August.
Right.
2 in the spring, 2 in the summer, 2 in the fall. You can still have a freaking life. No entry fee championship with a $250,000 purse. And they're still doing live streaming, and they're still doing the trailered weigh-ins.
Correct. So, and I've never fished one, so I can't, say how well it's run, but I've heard a lot of really good things, and I'm sure you have too. So I'm all for, seeing what it's all about, and maybe they can grow this thing into something, spin it off some kind of way. I think it's going to be great.
There's also a $20,000 Progressive Angler of the Year winner.
That's right.
Listen, everybody that I've had on the show that's fished the NPFL, Soka, Kevin Rogers, Taylor Watkins, I've had some others. They all say that the way that it is run is the best as far as the actual physical running of the event, the launching in the morning, the taking out, the communication is the best run tournament circuit they've ever fished. So I think you'll be in it. It's like I said, it's a hell of a deal, and it's amazing all of the obstacles that they've overcome to where you look at this, what they have coming out right now with 76 anglers, and you're like, dude, this is in professional fishing. This is your best case scenario.
Right. I mean, it's 100,000. I mean, granted, I know you can win a little bit more, obviously, with some bonus money on the other 2 tours. But as far as without, boat brand stipulations, it's as big of a payout as you can win just, anywhere. So
I'm really struggling, Jason, with how I figure out how I word this, how the invitationals filled that field with those guys that could make financial sense with signing up for that deal after it was gutted so deeply.
Man, I couldn't do it. I mean, it was obviously an option to me. And, I'm a fan of all the organizations. I'm not, biased to one, but I just couldn't see the travel distance and for the opens. It just didn't make sense. I mean, what do you stand to gain? So if I'm going to take a week away, I want to at least say that I had an opportunity to win X, right? So
that's opens and invitationals are not. I could understand Toyota Series, and you're fishing some Toyota Series trying to qualify for that championship.
Yeah.
And it's at the championships at Table Rock, right?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Now you what we just talked about.
Yeah, kind of like that place quite a bit, that time of year too.
But you have a chance to make some real money in this deal.
Yeah, I mean, I would think if I can go out and be consistent like I have over the last few years and avoid any stumbles, that hopefully you just give yourself a chance on day 3. That's where I go back to what you mentioned before. You're like, you can't win if you're not in position. So, days 1 and day 2, I think you have to do a good job of putting yourself in a winning position as many times as you possibly can throughout the tour.
I like this. You got Saginaw Bay. You follow Oklahoma, where you can get Spinney. You can get the old Finesse, Lanier, and then Amistad with the championship.
Yeah. Yeah. So the schedule's, it's several lakes that I haven't fished. Like I haven't fished Wright Patman. I haven't fished Saginaw Bay. I haven't fished Amistad in years. I haven't fished Santee since like the '05 Bassmaster.
Oh,
So
wow.
I like the new, go somewhere new kind of aspect of it. I'm game for that. Pickwick, I mean, I've been there several times, so hopefully get off to a good start and see how the whole season goes. But the championship at Amistad, I mean, that is it's not like close to my house, but it's a lot closer than it's going to be for some of those guys.
Yeah. Anything else you have going on? Anything you want to talk about? Social media, new sponsors for the season? Anything that that's coming on board?
Yeah, I just switched to a Phoenix boat. I've been in a Ranger a really long time, so obviously I went that direction, and it's a great boat. Seems to be so far. I haven't had to have it out. I haven't had it out very many times yet, but everything seems fine. It's all rigged up, ready to go. Reyes _fishing is the Instagram. You can check out some stuff there. I need to do a better job of that. I'm looking forward to the season, man. There's a lot of good lakes. I think I'm going to fish the northern Toyota series just because I love it up there that time of year when it's 100 where I live. And that's kind of my plan so far. My son's playing a lot of baseball. He's really into that and pitching and stuff. So the extended season from the NPFL helps with that. Keeps the spring a little more open. Doesn't clog up the spring baseball season. So it just works for me. I kind of wanted to hit you up and see if you can. It's been a few years. So what do you think about running it back, the fish and chips?
Oh my gosh,
you could do it, man. Like you could do it. But what if we threw a spin on it? What if we played poker and you had to like wear tournament gear from like 2000 or below, like lots of embroidery. You remember that?
Yeah, like the tan vests.
Yes, were those great? When you look back at some of that stuff, like how about Van Dam with like the tracker down the side?
That was I always liked the winged V Triton jerseys.
The pit crew jerseys. Those were horrible.
The iconic, I mean, I would have to think the most iconic patched jersey would have to be the Ranger across it. The red Ranger across it with the black and white tournament jersey. I remember when those came out, because then remember everyone, it didn't just go to dye sublimation. And I could be wrong here, but was it not Amart? It went from that, and then it went to, oh look, this guy's got 2 buttons and it's a pullover.
Yes.
Right. It wasn't completely down to where now the logos weren't kind of cockeyed like a baseball uniform. It went to that.
Yeah. I have one. I break it out from time to time. It's a zip up. You like the zip up.
Like the biker, like the biker.
No, like the chemical plant zip up uniform, the old school Roland Martin, Larry Nixon style.
I got
where
you.
it's jumpsuit. The jumpsuit is what I'm. Yeah.
I feel like Tim
and it
Horton
literally
wore a
has a
jumpsuit.
Bassmaster tag on it. Yeah.
Oh, the tag is Bassmaster.
It says Bassmaster on the tag.
Ooh, that's fancy. Tim Horton wore that in one of the classics a couple years ago, I think.
I think he did. He broke that. Yeah, he had to break that out. But it's always good to revisit that kind of stuff. Like those were the days, man.
Yeah,
like
Clay saying
will we ever see a tournament where we go special one-off tournament, no electronics?
I would like to see an all-star weekend. We've done an all-star tournament, but I would like to see an all-star weekend where you have a skills competition. You have a deal where the fans get on the water and fish for a couple hours with the guys in the all-star. We've already had the voting. You have a one-day matches against those guys where everything is streamed live. I mean, an all-star weekend, I think, for the Elite Series or the BPT would be absolutely phenomenal.
I do too. I think
but you could have an old school. I mean, you could have them all do their old school stuff. I mean, look at every other sport. Now, obviously, the only reason that hasn't happened, and they used to have the All-Star Weekend. I've actually literally got a Toyota Trucks All-Star Week Decatur, Illinois sign on my wall right there. They obviously didn't make a ton of money on it because anything that they do is because of money. So if it was incredibly lucrative, I would think that they would have an All-Star Weekend.
Well, I mean, you have the owner or part owner or whatever of BPT that owns a NFL team. Like, why not bring some football players out there? It can't be that hard. I mean, they only play like 4 months out of the year.
I would love to see it, and then throw your old school, have a no electronics derby. I mean, you could do so many things over 3 days, and it's only at 12 guys.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, I think that there should be more of that in fishing if we're gonna, if we're gonna somewhat plateau with the payouts. Well, then let's generate some things elsewhere.
I agree. I mean, I think it would also be good to have to do the old TTBC style again and have it. And I know there's a lot of switching and stuff, but I mean, dude, there's a lot of pride over on the bass side, and there's a lot of pride over on the BPT side. And those guys have all known each other, fished against each other, been friends, or still friends, but you still take 15 and 15 and put them up against each other. And there's enough. I just had a show yesterday with Pete Robbins. There's enough beef there where it's not going to be, oh, well, we didn't just catch him. Like it's going to be no holes barred.
Oh, and that's what we need, a little bit of that, and good fun for sure. I mean, there's
in pure hatred, like bring it in, like where you're not hatred, but like pure competition where you're like, dude, I do not want to freaking lose to these guys.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you imagine the noise that's talked on a football field or a basketball court between players, and then they go have a beer after. Like, why can't it be the same for fishing, right?
Yeah. And did you ever fish the TTBC?
Yes, I did. I mean, at Lake Fork.
The coolest thing ever. They had like cans and things of beer back there, and all of the deal. And you're fishing for a $250,000, and everyone took it seriously. But it was such a great atmosphere for that. Probably the most looked forward to tournament for any of those guys that qualified for it that there has been.
Oh, everyone loved it. Everybody that participated in it loved it. I mean, you go to an event and there's like Toyota 4x4s on an off-road track off to the side, big tents and sponsors. It was great. I mean, I think we need more of that. I think COVID kind of threw a kick in that, but I mean, we're for the most part past all that. We need to get back into doing some things like that again, I think.
For those who don't know, you've mentioned it a couple of times about running a business. Just what kind of.
So I own a manufacturing distributing company here in Houston, and we service grocery stores. So your Kroger, H-E-B type grocery stores here in Houston and Dallas, and service them with non-food type products, whether it be anything from mops and brooms to housewares to socks to hair accessories, all that stuff you see hanging on the sides of the aisles, and displays and hats, and just all kind of importing a lot of goods and things like that. So I got about 40 employees.
I always wonder how people get into the profession that they end up getting into. Like how does one end up in that game?
Yeah. So I ended up, my dad was into it. That's how I got into it. And I mean, I started at a young age. I mean, I tell a story sometimes that, he used to drive around in like the UPS style trucks, the step vans. And I would literally sit on a bucket in the truck, and he kept all the merchandise in there. And we would just be going down the freeway with the door open, and I'd be sitting on a bucket. I mean, now they'd have helicopters on you if there was a 9-year-old kid driving around in a truck, like it's crazy. But he got me into it, and it's something that I took to, and it was sales, and he kind of taught me a lot about it and made me work hard, and I appreciate that, and still do today. So I'm actually leaving after I get done with you, and I'm going to my office to show some NCAA hair accessories to a Kroger buyer. So I mix it all. I make it all work between family and kids baseball and work and fishing. So
I like it. I got a couple more photos I want to throw up. You good for that time? I don't want to keep the
No, I'm good.
All right. So
yeah, no, I
anything we talked about today, I've gone back and I've double checked on Jason's profile, and he's not kidding. Look, there's a shaky head. Look at how that thing is. I mean, that's exactly what you talked about. I mean, this right here is the deal, right? Like the way that's
it. That's a double collar, and it's a 3/0 Gami hook on an 1/8 ounce ball head. That's it.
All right, and then if you scroll further up in your profile, there is one picture of you with the frog. But
every now and again you got to.
There it is from the front. There it is from the front view. There's the spinning rod on it. Yep. And the reason that these are all in is because it means that you've been kicking everybody's butt on them. But then hold on, there's one that's there's one I gotta show 100%. All right, there's the Cinco.
There's the Cinco, yeah.
What was with the Def Leppard hat? I know you wore that for a while. That you were you kind of got well known for that for a minute.
So I wrapped the boat with Def Leppard.
Yeah,
I mean, probably find that too. But so I did that. It's one of those things where you're like, if you make something mandatory, like I'm kind of like, well, why is that necessary to make it quote mandatory? I get it. I get the image you're trying to create. But at the end of the day, I mean, these boats, I mean, they make them that way for a reason, and then we go stick the same decals that are already on the boat on top of the wrap. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I was like, hey, you're going to make me wrap my boat? Well, I'm going to wrap it like this. That's kind of how that went.
So did you have to clear that with Def Leppard?
Oh, yeah. I get stopped at the gas stations from time to time, and they ask me if I'm part of the band, and I just I'm the new 2-arm drummer.
But did you have to clear that with Def Leppard? Like you didn't have to do any legal to be like, hey, Def Leppard,
Well, here's the deal. The way I thought of that is like, well, what would be the difference if I had a decal on the back of my truck that said Def Leppard on it? So to answer your question, it's no.
That's fair.
No. Could I get in any trouble? Maybe. I don't know.
I do know of an angler who has received I do know of an angler out there who has had wrapped boats where they got legal letters that said, we please unwrap the boat with us. Like we
right. And if Def Leppard called me up or one of their representatives and said, hey, unwrap the boat. I mean, what am I going to do? Unwrap the boat.
But it was a Jersey Shore deal. Where you remember when Mike the Situation
boat then.
do you remember when Mike the Situation was paid handsomely by Abercrombie and Fitch not to wear Abercrombie and Fitch on the Jersey Shore because it did not match with their brand. So he literally was paid to not wear Abercrombie and Fitch.
So he got paid for it.
Yes. So he got paid to not wear it. So I always thought that there would be there would be a way to reverse engineer that in fishing to where you're just like, you don't want me to wear your stuff because I'm going to do dumb stuff this tournament. Pay me $10,000 and you will stay out of this debacle.
And I won't wear it if you pay me. Yeah. Tell me how we can get on that level.
Are you even going to wrap it for the NPFL or?
No.
Okay.
No. It's not mandatory.
I got you. All right. Last image. There it is. That is the setup. Absolutely. What you were talking about there. That's back from 2018.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, it's for the most part simple, a little bit harder to implement, but it is definitely effective.
This was a hell of a show, man. I had a great time today.
Yeah, I did too, man. It was great.
All right. You got anything else?
Man, not really. Like I say, I just want to go out there and see what the NPFL is all about. I'm excited. It starts off in about 30 or so days, and I'm just looking forward to it, man. It's going to be an opportunity to fish in a much smaller field, and if you really look at it, the lakes are big considering for 70 something boats. I mean,
you won't see anybody out there. It'll be like out there by yourself.
Yeah.
Imagine Eufaula, Oklahoma with 70 boats on. You could fish 70 boats in Eufaula Cove and still have
like
water
70
to fish.
bridges on that lake, much less. Yeah. So, Saginaw Bay, Lanier's huge, Pickwick's large, and Santee's obviously big. So there's going to be plenty of water for everyone, and we shouldn't run into any, on top of people. And the other thing that I really love, and I think you would agree as well, fishing the opens for 2 days with a small cut, everyone fishes 3 days.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel if I travel to an event for a week, at least I know I'm fishing 3 days, guaranteed.
Yeah. 100%.
So I like that.
Yeah, that's good
I like
stuff.
that a lot.
The cream always rises to the top, I believe is the word that would, the more you fish, the higher the law of averages for the good anglers.
I would agree. I mean, it even if you have a little stumble, you got, some time to make that up. So yeah, like I say, I like everything about it. It's going to be something new and fresh for me. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. I've always said, if there's probably, 10,000 guys who could beat KVD in a 1-day tournament.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And
now, if you fished 15 consecutive days against him, that number is like 0.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was probably 0 after like 7 or 8, but yeah.
Law of averages.
Yeah. So like I say, I like everything about it. Looking forward to it. Those guys seem to really be hungry to make this a go and advance it through 23 and into 24. So that's what's exciting.
All right, Jason. Take care.
All right, man. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, see ya. That was Jason Reyes. Really enjoyed that. I've known Jason for a long time, not like best friends with him. We've done the fish and chips. I agree. We do need to bring the fish and chips back. That's a logistic thing with Jeffries. I don't know. Everyone who's ever fished the fish and chips, part poker, part bass fishing, 50% split on your poker and your bass fishing. Overall champ got 20 grand, invitation only. A lot of guys brought a poker pro. There's a lot of guys, like Kyle Welchers who fish and have played poker professionally as well. Yeah, it needs to come back. It does need to come back. All right, some updates on what we got going on the rest of the week. Tomorrow, Wednesday, Chad Morgenthaler retired. Bassmaster Elite Series and FLW Tour Pro, big time in Florida. He's going to be on to talk about all of the tournaments that are going down in Florida, and then also talk about what he has going on along with Dave Mansu, Brian Snowden, and a couple other people there at Table Rock as far as educational trips and weekends. I think I might be a part of some of that stuff too. Going forward, but a lot of cool stuff going on with Chad. We will check in with him. And then I also talked with Todd Klein, who is going to be on next Wednesday, the 15th, to talk about his win at Havasu and the whole surfing thing. Really cool dude there, and looking forward to getting to know him. But I think, like I said, if you are in the Minnesota area, that thing is coming up this week. I'm trying to look at the audio so it doesn't muffle for like 5 seconds with the background music feature here. Hopefully we got that straightened out. All right, this has been another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live. Chad Morgenthaler tomorrow. Big thanks to Jason Reyes today. Learned a lot from today's show. We'll probably learn a lot about Florida from tomorrow's show. We'll see everybody then. Later.